Alrighty, welcome back to the Unchristian Podcast. Hello, world, and we are so happy to have you once again. As you know, if this is your first time, click on that subscription button. It helps us a lot to grow the platform. And when you leave a review, you leave a comment, and you share, it also helps us to grow. And you are part of our family, and we need you. We need to help us to grow. So welcome once again. And as always, I'm with my co-pilot, the queen of the Unchristian Podcast.
Hi guys.
How you doing, Mtaze?
I'm good, Mdaz. How are you doing?
Awesome.
So we're continuing. This is our...
we're doing part 2 of this fascinating conversation with the Mazindos, who are here, such a wonderful couple. So guys, we were still dealing with premarital issues, and we went deep, man. The last point, Mrs. Maz was talking about how we meet people, but we don't realize we're also meeting their past.
Yes.
And the entire totality of their past experiences, just who they are. It's not just the person in front of you, but it's who they've been, where they've been, what they've gone through, and that needs to form the context of your conversations with someone as you're approaching them, right? Deep stuff. How should I use this information? When someone is meeting somebody, they're about to get married, how should I use this information? Obviously, I don't want to use it against them. I need to use it to help us move forward in a healthier way. How do we have these conversations in a healthy way? I'll go for it, sir.
Yeah. I mean, for you to fully enjoy the heaven in a person, you must know how much hell you can take from them.
Okay.
That is very important.
So you must be in the clear and the know. Just know everything about them.
Yeah, definitely. We are the whole person, actually. But we are too obsessed about what's right about people. And we use that as a decider to marry them. Because what's right about them fills up what's wrong about us. And then we marry them for what's wrong about us.
Sure.
Because we think we are marrying them for what's right about them. So you need to accept yourself fully as a person.
Sure.
There's this mentor of mine that I adopted, even though he died long before I was born. But I regard him as my mentor. Yeah. His name is Carl Gustav Jung.
Okay.
He speaks about the 3 selves, but I want to talk about the 2, the persona and the shadow.
Okay.
We all have those. The persona is the self that you present for people to see, the acceptable parts of yourself.
Yeah.
Like like all of us are walking around with our personas, but equally important as the persona is the shadow.
Okay.
The dark side.
Sure.
Of us. We all have it. And those are things that we don't want people to know. And we are also uncomfortable accepting about ourselves. Because that means some kind of self-disapproval. And it can bring anxiety. So it's easier to deny them. It's easier to reject them. It's easier to just press them down.
Yeah.
And focus on what's right about us. Now, when I wish I could make an illustration. Suppose you are what's right about me, and you are what's wrong about me. And I decide to focus only on what's right about me. Do you see what I've done to what's wrong about me?
Tend your back.
Yes.
And that's still part of you.
And that's the part of me that I regard to be dangerous.
Yeah.
It's like turning my back against the lion to look at a pussycat.
And the lion is going to bite. He's going to come back to bite you.
That's exactly what we do. Most of us, we when we focus too much on what's right about us, and we turn our backs
to what is wrong.
Towards what is wrong about us, we give it power.
Jehovah.
I mean, I can't even
Jehovah.
protect myself against anything that is behind me. So this one becomes more powerful. This one doesn't even need power because it's not dangerous.
Yeah.
So I'm stronger when I do this.
My goodness.
Because if I can recognize what's wrong about me, accept it, embrace it, then I can deal with it.
Yeah.
So I need to be able to make the darkness conscious
Okay.
so that I can use the light to bring light to the dark areas of my life.
Yo, Nkosi yami.
But we reject the dark part of us. But because I reject it, I project it on other people.
Right. Right.
So what we call communication sometimes is projection.
Goodness.
You know,
I feel like I'm in a psychology class right now.
Listen,
and it's both of
I
us.
am in therapy right now. I'm being disciplined.
You're in therapy. I'm not.
Ngiyashaywa namhlanje,
Wena.
ngiyacorrectwa.
So
Yo.
you are not willing to admit that you are a narcissist. Because you don't want to admit that you are a narcissist. You find yourself calling your partner a narcissist.
Projecting it to them.
Yeah. That's why I said we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are.
We are.
Thank you for coming back and clarifying that one. Because it left me with questions that one.
That's exactly how it goes. We don't see with our eyes, guys. We see through our eyes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
We see with the eyes of our souls. And what's happening in the soul is deeper than our minds can comprehend.
That's right, sir.
What's in our soul is what we are unwilling to admit, embrace, or address. It's like now there's a thief in your house. You don't know the thief is there, and you'd rather not know that the thief is there. But you wonder why things keep on missing. You blame people in the house. So when you don't address the thief in your own life, you will always blame your wife about what's missing in your life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We sabotage ourselves and blame our spouses for it. So that is what we need to be aware of.
Yeah.
My mentor, Carl Gustav Jung, may his soul rest in peace. He doesn't even know he's my mentor. He says, for our leaves to reach heaven, our roots should be grounded in hell. Because if they are not that deep, you can't go that high.
My goodness.
So I wonder why Jesus, when he healed people, he healed them. But he didn't end there. He made them whole.
Made them whole. Right.
He said to the woman with the issue of blood, your faith has made you whole.
Yes.
After he has declared that she was healed. So in other words, there's a correlation between wellness and wholeness. There's something about not being whole that makes us sick.
Yeah.
And not being whole is focusing on your persona and not accepting your shadow as yours.
That's yours.
Now you are living from the persona, and because you live from the persona and you are not in touch with your own shadow, you see shadows everywhere you go.
The problem is in church, right? We are taught he that is in Christ is now a new creature. The old has passed away. Behold, now is the new. That's what the Bible teaches us.
Yes.
And we then interpret that in practically as I can ignore and forget everything of mine that is dark, that what you're describing. And I can just focus on this new persona, this new image that Christ has given me.
Sure.
But you bringing something there, help somebody who's struggling with that. I'm a new creature, Mos.
Yeah. Then you wouldn't have said work out your
own
salvation,
salvation.
your own salvation with
Yeah.
fear and trembling.
Work it out, yeah.
And he didn't have to be interested in your heart. He said, give me your heart. And sometimes he says, guard your heart
Yeah.
with all diligence, because out of the heart proceed the matters of life.
My goodness.
And Paul, on that note, writes an epistle to the church of the Romans.
Yeah.
And we like the part where he says, the things I don't want to do, I do. The things I don't want to do, I do, and all that. He was addressing people who were already Christians.
Yes,
in Rome,
yes.
if I believe I'm correct.
Yes, you are.
Because I still have to go for training.
Of
now and
course.
again. So he was addressing people who have already received Christ,
Yeah.
who have the new image. But he has an understanding that the things that I'm supposed to do, because now I'm a new creation or new creature, I'm unable to do
Still
them.
struggling, yeah.
I'm still struggling. So there's still this bad behind me, you know. And I like how he puts it, because that's the part that we like. But subsequent to that, Paul says, because when I want to do good, evil is always right there beside me. In every decision of your life, there are two entities that are fighting, and you always have to choose one each time. Whether you are doing a podcast, whether you are about to clean, it's either you have I'm not going to clean this do house because that man is not even, he's not a good husband. Why must he fight? There's always evil right there beside you, and you always have a choice.
Sure.
And he's talking to people that have got a new image, a new, they are new creatures.
They are in Christ.
Yeah, they're in Christ. So we are battling every second of our lives to literally choose between good and evil. He says each time, do you understand the word each time? It means every split second, every half a split second of your life, you always have the good and the evil that you have to choose between.
And then, when we get saved, all things become new, right?
Yeah.
What if what happens when you get saved and you are pregnant with someone by someone who's not your husband? Does the baby die? Do you miscarry so that things become new?
No, you can't.
What if you already have children that were born out of wedlock? Do you unbirth those people, those children, so that things are new?
Yeah.
What if you are HIV positive and you get saved?
Yeah.
Are you all of a sudden negative? What if you slept with 15 men before you got saved? Do you all of a sudden become a virgin? No. Yes, we are through with our past, but our past is not through with us.
Not by a long
So
shot.
I was actually talking about the heart. I want to explain something about the heart. There's a verse, I think it's Proverbs 23 verse 7. He says, as he thinketh in his what?
Mind.
In his mind.
No.
In his heart.
It's hard. It's hard. Sorry, it is hard. Yes.
As he thinketh in his heart.
heart.
I was just trying to mislead you. Test the depth of your knowledge of
You got
scripture.
us.
As he thinketh in his heart, so is he. The Bible is not confused. If he wanted to say, as he thinketh in his mind,
Would have said it.
so is he. He would have said that. But he decided to say, as he thinketh in his heart. So the question is, since when has the heart been used for thinking? I made a study on that, and I studied like tons of literature in terms of what is the meaning of the word heart in the Bible. And I made my own conclusion out of studying literature that the heart refers to the unconscious part of thinking.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So as you are in your as he is in his unconscious mind, so is he.
There it is.
So guard your
There it
heart.
is.
Guard those things that you want to ignore.
Guard your subconscious.
Guard your heart. Guard your subconscious.
Under the surface.
And usually what's in the subconscious, it's not things that are good. It's the bad that has been repressed. It's the sex that I wanted to have with that woman and I repress it. It's the when I wanted to kill that person and repress it. When I wanted to fight my father for beating my mother, I repressed it. So that's everything that's sad and painful and dangerous and aggressive and bad and mean. They are repressed into the heart.
Jehovah.
And that's what you should guard. And that's what determines what you are.
Oh, yeah.
So we need to address the parts of our lives that we are not aware of. Because that is the level of thinking that affects everything about our lives. Before I think about not saying "Mwah" to my wife, I've already said it.
Yeah.
Because consciously I don't want to, but unconsciously I
you've said
think
it.
about it as an iceberg. The tip of the iceberg is the things that we are
See.
aware of.
Yeah.
The whole mountain underneath are our unconscious mind. So that is why the Bible says, love one another deeply. When we talk about deep, we talk about something that is not visible
Yes.
to the eye.
Yes.
And we talk about something that dark. You can't be deep and not dark unless you have ESCOM underneath and you get load shedding anyway. But the Bible encourages us to go to the deep, to guard with diligence the deep things in our hearts. Guard with diligence that aggression, that hatred, the hatred that you don't want to experience because it feels like you are not a child of God when you experience it. So you hate one person in your childhood, you repress the hatred because experiencing it makes you a bad person.
Yeah.
Now it goes into the heart.
Goodness.
And from the abundance of the heart, you treat your wife.
The mouth.
So
speaks now.
let's right there. Let's link it now to this new marriage that's about to start. All of this. How does it manifest and affect and plays out in this new relationship if we don't treat it or do the right things concerning what you're saying?
He said earlier that our subconscious mind or unconscious mind is responsible for 90% of our behavior.
Yeah.
That's a large number.
Yeah.
So it's going to affect how you behave as a husband, as a wife, and to your spouse, and even to your children.
Goodness.
And remember, when we talk of subconscious, unconscious, it means it's at a level where you're not aware. So the second you are aware of something, it's easy for you to confront it, to deal with it, you know, how to navigate towards it or around it rather. But the second something is not in your awareness level, and that's where the subconscious is, you don't have power over it. So you're not even aware that you are behaving in such a way. And the second your spouse confronts you, it's easy for you to blame them. The second your spouse brings it up, it's easy for you to look at them and say, but you are the problem, as he had mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So it affects how you behave, and you are not even aware
Goodness me. I get
that
you.
you're behaving.
I get you.
Yeah.
Do I need to be healed before getting into marriage, or can the work continue? Can I get married and then continue with the work? Or must I wait first?
When you wait until you get married, you are not going to get healed. You are going to forget that you are head.
Yeah.
And the marriage
Yeah.
will touch the parts you thought were healed.
My goodness.
And then, I don't know what, I almost said something that hits the fan. I don't know. And then things spiral out of control. Like my wife she spoke about this earlier. There used to be times, even now, we still have those encounters when she says, but Lehlohonolo, this is not me.
You're not talking to me.
It's not me you're talking to. I didn't do something that is equivalent to your reaction. I'm 43. I'm still trying to understand myself in terms of what went wrong. But I can only understand myself within the context of marriage, because marriage resembled the family that broke me. I mean, it's like how I see my wife is not different from how I see my mother. Especially my stepmother, who was abusing me. And the presence of my wife, because before I met my wife, I forgot that I was hurt.
Yes.
But my wife lovingly pulls the trigger that touched the parts that hurt, that got hurt. The problem earlier, I think it's in the first part when I said we don't fall in love with our heart, we fall in love through our wounds. I'm looking for a bandage that is perfectly suited for the wound. You know, when you touch an open wound, no matter how you lovingly you touch it, the person is going to hurt.
Yeah.
And hurt is a passive emotion. It can't protect you from anything. So you turn that hurt into anger. You turn it into hate so that you can fight for yourself.
I see.
So you are fighting the very same person
Thank
who's
God
trying
that this
to
is my
minister.
shoulder. Sorry.
You are fighting the very person who is here to minister to the wound. We need to be aware of what went wrong with us.
My goodness.
And we need to face it. I know it hurts.
Yeah.
You need to understand that you are beauty, but you're also the beast. You need to understand you are a hero, but you're also the villain.
Yeah. Same person.
You need to understand that you are a sinner, but you are also a saint. You need to embrace both parts of you. You are an angel and a demon.
Same time.
And when you think about yourself as a demon, you actually immediately feel bad. And now you turn your back to the parts of you
Yes.
that are demons, and you give them power to destroy you without your awareness.
Sure.
Be a whole person.
Yeah.
Be your own. Recognize the hell in you.
Yeah.
Because that's where the path to the heaven in you
Yeah.
begins.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we need to really make sure that we bring ourselves wholly into that and allow marriage to, like I say, to become our mirror.
Yeah.
The secret is to make the unconscious conscious
Yeah. Yeah.
and the conscious unconscious. That is why I was saying love each other deeply. That word means love each other from your unconscious
Depths.
mind.
Yeah.
So in other words, love consciously to an extent that it becomes unconscious. But you can't love consciously if you hate unconsciously.
Sure.
If you are, as soon as you embrace your unconscious hatred and you become aware of it, it becomes conscious. And when it becomes conscious, it no longer affects most of what you do. Like it switches. Say when it's unconscious, it controls 90% of your behavior. When it becomes conscious, it only controls 10%.
Sure. Sure.
And then when love is conscious, it only controls 10% of what you do. That is why I would say to my wife, I love you, and she would say, yeah, right. Because my behavior
It's not
does
it.
not come from the
Yeah,
conscious love.
yeah.
It comes from the unconscious hatred.
Yeah.
So we have to take love and make it unconscious.
Yeah. Yeah.
And take hatred and make it conscious.
Sure.
And then we can love deeply.
I get you.
And our hatred for each other will be very shallow.
Oh man.
Will not go far. And then now that's when we will start practicing. Love is twofold. It's an emotion.
Yeah.
It also is an action. It's a verb. It's a feeling and it's a verb.
Yeah.
So if you practice love as a verb, even if you don't feel like it, emotions catch on and it becomes an emotion. That's how that's the work that we need to be able to do in our lives.
Work, man.
It's a lot of work, and we
yeah.
need to be patient with ourselves and with each other. And we need to develop that understanding
Sure.
that all of us are wounded, but only a few would admit it.
But to also answer your question, it is a continuous journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are making it sound simple, but it's more complicated. It's more complex because in all honesty, when you do sit down with your potential spouse and you start having these conversations, you don't have a psychological background like we do. You don't have, the knowledge that we have, the information, the research, what that we have. Even though you're listening to this podcast, it's still, you've got more questions than answers, and we can't really answer your questions. So to simplify things, some of these things are not going to come out in conversation before you get married. It's going to take the marriage, as he has said. It's triggers in the marriage.
Triggers, yeah.
Remember, these things are not in your awareness level, so you don't even know that you have this problem, right? So because even if you know that in your childhood, your father hit your mom, you know that it's something that you saw. You just don't know how much it has affected you and how much it's affecting your behavior until now you are married.
Yes.
So even though you can say to your spouse, while you're going through premarital and you're like, you know what, my father used to abuse my mom. That's on a conscious level.
Yes.
We are aware you saw it. It's something that you saw. But how it affected you, it's something that you probably discover inside of marriage.
Yeah.
So don't feel the pressure of figuring it out while you are married. It's circumstances that are going to reveal that. It's triggers that are going to reveal that. But when that does happen, what we are asking is that don't be quick to point the finger. Don't be quick to blame your spouse. Take time. Now you know this information. Get a therapist. Get somebody who will help you. And another thing that we need to understand is that a person that marries you comes as a whole package.
Yeah.
So it's the whole thing that if you're going to ignore the bad, you're in trouble. And somebody might go, but I mean, new creature, we're in Christ. Is they bad? I can swear right now. I can drop this place right now, you know. I can.
It's
I have
in
that.
you, yeah.
It's in me. It's there, you know. But then the book of Ephesians says we must not use vulgarous words. So there's a point of discipline that I have to have, right? So having said that, we are a whole package, whether we believe it or not, whether we accept it or not.
Right.
And so you need to understand that your spouse comes as a whole package. You need to be able to deal with both the thorn of the rose and the scent of the rose as well, you know.
Nice.
It's something that my husband used to like talking, that people like the rose. They like the powder. Oh my goodness, I can smell the rose. It looks so elegant. It's red. It's very luxurious and all. But there's a thorn attached to that rose, you know. If you're going to pick that rose now because you are picking a person, you're going to marry them, you need to understand that the thorn is part of the stem, you know. And are you willing to deal with that stem? So the issue is that we want to live our lives thinking that we are perfect. And to me, and for the longest time, and this is how I define perfection, you know. Excuse me that I'm coming against Oxford and all that, but I don't define perfection as a lack of flaws or weaknesses or anything bad. But to me, perfection is being able to master your flaws, your weaknesses, and your problems.
Absolutely.
That's where perfection comes on, because at the end of the day, I believe that it's only God that can be perfect. But now the word perfect does exist. How do we make the word relevant? And to me, it's being able to master, or rather navigate around the things that are a struggle to you.
Yes.
You come from an abusive home, so you've got an inclination to be abusive to your wife. It is a weakness. How do we know this? Is because when we came from a date last week, as we are going through marital counseling, you pushed me, you shoved me over, and I've never seen you do that, and that is very, very scary now, you know. So now you know you've got an inclination of being abusive. Now the first step is, how do you manage that? You know, do you go to therapy? How do you confront it? How did that abuse at home really affect you, and to which extent? So we need to learn to manage all these things, but like I said, it's a continuous journey, you know. The most important thing is it's being able to confront your pain. It's being able to confront your past. It's being able to confront the bad side of you. You know, something that you confront, you give it less power over your life. I remember I was quite interested by the story of Jeffrey Dahmer. If some of you know him, I like watching things that are law-related, forensics, and murders. I'm not a murderer. I'm not aspiring, but you know, in my other free time when I'm not researching and studying and whatever, the things that the topics that I'm good at, I also, you know, it's actually my self-care. It's quite weird, but so Jeffrey Dahmer was a serial killer. You know, he became famous. I just forgot the town, Minnesota, whatever, in the States.
Minnesota.
Yes, and then he was he killed people. He killed, I think, about 27 men. So he targeted men, and he will lure them into his apartment, drag them, and kill them, whatever. So I'm not going to give Netflix a free ad. But he was a very dangerous serial killer. And when they interviewed him before he was killed by an inmate in 1994, 1992, Jeffrey Dahmer said, they asked him, when did this start? And he said, it started when I was about 15 or 18. He had a desire, so a bad side, a demon in him, you know, where he wanted to get a man that can submit to him, you know, sexually, and he can do as he pleases with the person. And he always had a desire to pick up somebody as like a hitchhiker. And he got, this guy was hitchhiking, got home. When he got there, the first instinct was, let me kill this man, because once I kill him, he will be submissive to me. He killed the guy and abused him sexually, because now he's dead. So he can do anything as he wants with that guy's body part. That was the first killing that Jeffrey Dahmer committed. Then I think there was a span of 10 years or 5 to 10 years where he didn't kill his next victim. And what was interesting to the jury, they asked, what made you stop? What made you stop? And he said to the person that, I started going to church. I ignored it, he said. I tried to ignore it. You know, I tried to ignore the urge, and then I went to church. And he said, the only time that I was at church, when I used to go with my grandmother, because he killed the first victim in his grandmother's house, he said, I was able to keep it under control. And then I left church, and when I left church, I had an inclination to do it again, but I ignored it many a times. And I remember, you know, one of the lawyers asked and said, then, but why didn't you get help? Because it was concluded that Jeffrey Dahmer was afforded many opportunities to get help. He ignored the help, and he ignored the inclination until it took full control of him. So sometimes when you have a bad side of you and you've got an inclination to do something, it doesn't mean that Jeffrey Dahmer was supposed to go and kill more. It means that you are supposed to confront it in the means of therapy, confront it in the means of handing himself over to the authorities. And the state's argument against him was, you had so many opportunities to deal with your problem, you didn't.
You?
Because there was a time when in between the killings, he was called in by the social security, and he was under some lawyer and under some psychiatrist or whatever that was hired by the state, because he did other things other than the murder that put him in that position. And they said, on this and this date, in that evening, you killed so and so. The day before, you saw the social worker. They asked if you're okay. You saw your psychologist, and you didn't say anything. So I'm trying to get back to the point that when you don't deal or confront with the things that are urges to you in the correct way, the day that they take over your life, it's going to be bad. It's instances where you hear Usbanbani ubulala umfazi wakhe, and you're like, but they were such a loving couple. And the first thing we want to know is what happened. And the first thing that man is going to answer and say is, I don't know.
I don't know what came over me.
I don't know what came over me. Because he knew that he had this anger in him, but we think that we can just suppress things. And how I explain it is, when you suppress things like that from your past and whatever, they're going to come out in your marriage, because they like what we call sweeping dust under the carpet. The day the wind blows, we are all, jaws are going to drop. We're going to ask how, because he was a prominent man in society. He did this, he did that, he was that, he was a psychologist. What happened? It's because we don't confront the things that are hurting us. And the day that the wind blows and human excrement hits the fan, it becomes very difficult. So we need to, but like I said, it's not such a quick, easy process. It's a journey, and it's a journey that you don't have the luxury to go through it yourself, because if you did, you wouldn't have that problem to begin with. You need external help. You need people that are properly trained. Now, personally, I'm a person that I love Christ and and all that, but I have an issue with some of the ways in which, as Christians, we deal with things. I'm going to challenge that, I don't have a 10,000-seater church. I don't have e-collar. I don't have anything. I'm me, but I'm saved. But I want to challenge that, because there are some things that need prayers and others don't.
Yes.
That's why even Christ himself says, such. It means there are others that don't. Such needs fasting and prayer. It means others don't need fasting and prayer. So we need to have the wisdom and the intelligence and the discerning spirit to know that this now needs fasting and prayer, and this needs confrontation. I can back that up now again, because it's a doctrine. If I can back it up, it becomes a doctrine. The second part, Christ always, earlier my husband said, Christ would say, your faith has healed you, I've made you whole. If you can check throughout the Gospels, you could see that in many occasions Christ would say, "Your faith has healed you. Your faith has healed you." We can firmly confirm that Christ was teaching faith, because he would say, "Oh, you of little faith, oh faithless of faith." That it means that he was instilling the principle of faith as believers, And because he was instilling this principle, you would think that every situation we have to deal with it in faith. Faith means things that are not there as if they are there. It's a spiritual thing. It's commanding the supernatural realm to operate in the physical realm. Faith consists of a lot of things. Yet there was one particular incident that I feel like Jesus balanced the equation. Because he comes to his disciples and they were about to build a tower, and you would expect that he would say, by faith this tower will be built, but Jesus understood that we are spirit beings, yet we have an element of the physical, because we are still in the physical realm. So laws and rules and principles still apply of the earth, even though we are spiritual, and so we need to attend to that as well. That's why I wouldn't support people who discard psychology altogether, because if psychology is the study of, remember, psychology is the study of the mind. It's not a doctrine, it's not a religion. But Christians have treated psychology like it's some form of a religion that is against Christianity, and it's not. It's a study of the mind and the behavior of the mind. It's just a study. And who created the mind? It's God. So all psychology is doing is evaluating what God had created. I feel powerful right there.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
So what psychologists have done is just study study what has been created by God, which is the mind, the patterns, the behaviors, and we can extract so many psychological phenomena in scripture, it will actually shock
Absolutely.
you. And so because we have to touch base on all the soul, the spirit, the mind, and the body. Jesus has already addressed many a times the spirit aspect of things, but he comes to the physical aspect, the soul aspect, and he says, consider the cost. So this time around, use the element of your soul, which is the mind, the intellect, the thinking, the reasoning, perspective. Sit down, and he says, consider the cost of building a tower. He doesn't say pray for a tower to stand. He says, sit down, plan, strategize, analyze, evaluate, assess, call the engineers, ask the architects, call on the quantity surveyors. How many products do we need for that? What are the archaeologists saying about where it's built? The environmental analysis. Can you build the tower here, or is it not proper ground? Can the foundation stand? What does that mean to us? It means that we do pray for other things. Others we fast for them. Others we need to sit down and speak and discuss.
Yes, and think.
Think. Use our brains. Go
Powerful,
back.
man.
What happened? What is this? And there are others that will in our childhood will see that this was a traumatic experience that set on my subconscious, and now it's coming out on my wife or my husband. But this one is actually a generational curse. That which is a generational curse, let us get on our knees, pray, fast, and cast it out. But that which is sitting on the subconscious, because things do sit on the subconscious, because it's a brain that God created, and the function of the mind that God has created, we need to deal with it accordingly.
Therapy. Yeah.
It's very, very, very important. And so we can't discard these things. I say, the earth is the Lord, the fullness thereof, and all that dwelleth in it belong in him. So you can't say there is God, everything is in God, and you separate God and psychology, and separate God and archaeology, and every other study there is. All these people are doing is studying what is already there.
Yes.
They're just putting it into context. Some of it, of course, comes against the laws of creation. We can agree with those. We discard those. But generally, people are trying to make sense. And I don't blame somebody that comes and says the world was created from a big bang. There was a ball, there was an explosion. I don't blame them, because truly, how do we even conceptualize with our little human brains how God actually created the universe?
Amen.
We know that it was day one and let there be light. What does that really mean? What does it mean that there was darkness? Why was there darkness if God was light? Where was he when this expansion was there that had no form, and it was water, there was water, and was darkness, and spirit was. What does that really mean? So even what is actually written in creation, do we really understand it?
Sure.
So the guys that come then go, there was a big bang. To me, I'm like, I understand, because
Trying to make sense.
yeah, I know they're trying to make sense, because it also doesn't make sense with the expansion, the water. So why did he want? Why is everything how he planned the shrubs? Man, he created we are out of dust, but then he blew into our. It sounds like we understand as apostles and whatever we are, but we actually don't understand. He says to Job, do you really know how a child was created? Yes. He says, do you know the position of the wind? Can you detect that the wind has passed in the east, now it's in the left? We can scientifically, but do we really know? And so in other words, everything is in God, and we are just trying to make sense with the studies of what God is saying. So even with psychology, we are trying to understand how the mind is working, and it's okay. It's okay to
use those tools.
You need to use those tools to build this tower. And he says, so that they don't laugh at you and say, oh, look, he was unable to finish the tower. So God is concerned about how your situation is going to look in the eyes of people.
Wow.
Then we walk around and say, I don't care. No, you need to care. Because he doesn't want people to laugh at your marriage once you are married. And he doesn't want people to go, look at the Christian marriage. They divorced. No, he doesn't want that. So sit down with your spouse, look at things, evaluate behavior, the in-laws, how the in-laws treating you. You said earlier in the previous podcast, we need to even address things on finances. How do you view finances? How do you view money? Because there are two ways that people view money. The one area is that you view money as something that, like money, you work for money. This is what a lot of financial gurus speak about. It's either you work for money or money works for you. And it's such conversations that we need to know with your spouse. Does money work for you? Does your spouse believe that money works for them, or they work for money? And that even on its own stems from your upbringing.
Yeah.
you know, how your finances were used in the family, you know, how money was made in the family, how your family views marriage. You know, it goes back to the in-laws, it goes back to your upbringing. We must have these conversations. We must have conversations like who can manage money better, you know. Under normal circumstances, one could say women. And, you know, I do believe that because we've got a lot in mind. You know, my husband just wants to buy a house, but I want a smeg kettle, for God's sake, you know, and I want a La Crusade, you know, pot set, you know. And so it's better if I know the nitty-gritties of finances. But it's not always like that with every single relationship, because then you find a relationship where the wife is supposedly by society is the one that should manage money, actually spends money carelessly. So you need to know who is more of a careful spender in the family. You hand over the finances to that. It's things like, do we have a joint account? Do we you know, tell each other our salary, who's earning what? The businesses that we both attain. Do we get married in community of property or out of community? Do we sign a prenuptial? You know, it's conversations that we have to have, because these things pop up. Are you in debt? Do you have debt? People, I mean, the people that they didn't know that you're actually blacklisted. No, in fact, you're not blacklisted. You're under administration, and they discover later on you guys are trying to buy a house. You're excited, and he knows that he's under administration. He can't at all, and now you're under pressure. You know, you can't provide a home for your family. These are conversations that we need to have, and we need to be brutally honest as we go along. And all these things, I believe it, our behavior of even being in debt, our behavior of misusing money, our behavior of anything stems from our past. It stems from our upbringing. These things must be brought forth, you know.
That's powerful stuff. Now, let's talk about the art of war.
The art of war.
The art of war.
Okay.
You guys are very open about the fact that all couples have got disagreements and so on, and you are just, you know, you're candid about yours, but you're still married. You're still married. How do you constructively fight? Constructively, in such a way that your fighting has not put you at the divorce court, but you are very
close.
No. Let's hope not. So talk about that, the art of war. How does your warfare look like?
Let me start by differentiating it
from
the act of war. The act of war and the art of war. An act is not always planned.
Okay.
But art is planned action.
Okay.
For a specific purpose. When we are wounded, when we are bleeding, when we are confused, when we are miserable, we act out of the misery, out of the pain, from a survival
instinct
system of thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, if we hear a gunshot closely behind us, the chances all of us are going to run without thinking because we want to save our lives. There are people who are wounded so much and they don't even know it, that they are actually on a survival mode.
Yeah.
And when the war breaks, to them, it's just an act of survival. The art is different. Is where you see that, okay, the war is broken. I know I want to act like this, but this is my purpose, and this action is taking me that way. So, in as much as I want to act this way, I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
I want to go there. So let me act in a way that will take me there. It's about being intentional about your actions, and not allowing your unchecked edges to throw you over the edge when it comes to how you are supposed to reply.
Yeah.
I'm the victim of that because I did say I had a very, very, very rough, chaotic childhood.
Yeah.
And I'm a man of many wounds. In most cases, I find myself being the one who reverts to the act of war.
Okay.
And my wife would say, Mazindo, this action is not taking us where we want to go. She always comes and keeps me in check.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't listen to her immediately. Say, no, it doesn't matter.
Most times.
Okay, most times, sometimes.
Potato.
But there will be that one moment when I say, but my wife is actually right. What I have been doing is not taking us there. It's taking us there. I'd better stop doing it because I don't want to go there. And it becomes a sort of a continuous thing. It keeps on repeating itself, but you get better each time.
Yeah.
So you need to be patient with yourself and patient with others.
Sure.
So the act of war is when we fight out of instinct.
Yeah.
The art of war is when we fight by intention.
Sure.
We have an intent. The intent where we are going determines how we fight, our rules of engagement, the weapons that we use, where we are not supposed to hit. But in boxing, they say you shouldn't hit below the belt.
Yeah.
But when you act from a survival mentality, you
go
hit
for it.
below the belt. So we have to fight from a growth mentality.
Yes.
Because growth is not directly linked to emotions. It's linked to a purpose. When you fight as an act out of instinct, you rely on two things. What will help you avoid pain, or what will make you feel pleasure at the time?
Yes.
Sometimes I can feel pleasure seeing my wife crying. Or sometimes I can feel pain of my wife confronting me. And then I fight back. And she cries and I get pleasure.
Ish.
I fight some more.
Ish.
And then I end up where I don't want to be.
Sure.
Because it's the edges that I left unchecked, like I said, that will throw you over the edge.
Yes.
But when it's an art, sometimes it might look like you are going the opposite direction of where you're going.
Sure.
But you want to go there, but you have to go there first, but you know you're going there. So an art is a question of strategy. In a strategy, you have to plan the battles you are supposed to lose in order to win the war.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh,
Wow.
that's
So
powerful.
that's how strategy. I mean, I wish I was half as good as I speak.
Amen.
Yeah, but
Yeah. So the art of war is the war that is necessary.
Yeah.
Because it's confronted.
Yeah.
The war that is that is avoided, it shows up in uglier ways and it leads us to acts
Ish.
that are not unchecked, the acts that are not monitored. But when we know that we are going to have war, but the war the outcomes of the war should take us to that direction, we are better prepared. So I think that will bring me to the answer of the question that you asked, or the concern that you raised at the beginning, that we put across marriage as something that is not easy. Yeah. Expecting that the marriage will be too easy makes it hard for us when things go hard. Nothing worth having is meant to be easy. I have three. How many qualifications?
3.
I've got about 3 qualifications. None of them was as good as an orgasm. They were hard. They were terribly hard.
Yeah.
So everything worth having is hard. And when I think it's my other mentor, but this one I met personally at least. He's still alive, but he doesn't know he's my mentor. Les Brown.
Yeah.
He says, if you do what is hard, your life will be easy. If you do what is easy,
Your life will be hard.
your life will be hard.
Yeah.
And most people end up with a hard life because they choose
They
what
went
is
for
easy.
ease. Yeah.
When you enter in a marriage with a concept that it will be easy, that creates an unrealistic expectation.
Yes, sir.
Because when it gets hard, you will want to bail out because this is not what you signed up for. But if you know that it will not be easy, but it not being easy, it will propel me to do the things that are necessary for it to end up easy. So when you want the easy way, it leads you to the hard destinations. But if you take the hard route, it leads you to the easier
get you.
destination.
You know, I'm listening to this, and when Mrs. Mez was speaking, and now you speaking, I came up with one word, and that is humility.
Right.
Being humble enough when you're about to be married or in marriage to confront issues that are uncomfortable. It's just I'm just
Observation.
I'm just taking
You have
a
to.
note. I'm noting it in my
Yeah.
mind
Yeah.
to say
And what they're talking about is how we use conflict in a positive way
Yes.
for growth,
Yes.
for building, for going forward. Mrs. Mez, guys are strong with the fists. Women are doubly strong with the tongue. Hey, a woman can cut you into pieces
Yes, that's very true.
without a knife in her hand.
That's very true.
And that puts a man in a losing mode in his mind. I'm a loser because he can't retaliate on that level.
Then, of course, it goes to the fists.
Yeah.
Not to justify
Yeah, of course.
abuse.
Of course.
It's a tricky one, and of course, those are the tools that are unfortunately used when there is a war in marriage. It's the physical abuse and the verbal abuse, and of
Yeah.
course, then there's emotional and there's financial abuse
Sure,
and all.
sure.
Just to get back to the art of war, the first two things I think that we need to bring into conversation is that for any war you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared for any war. So I'm not saying walk around and be like, when is he going to fight? When is she going to
Yeah,
fight?
yeah.
No.
When is our
But,
next?
when is our next fight? But we know that these things happen, and because you're prepared, you can actually avoid.
Yes.
Because you're prepared of any situation that could potentially explode,
Yeah,
you have to then avoid. The next thing is to avoid where it's necessary.
Sure.
But as my husband said, it's not every battle that you can avoid, because some battles you have to fight out. You have to hash it out.
You have to go.
Yeah, you have to hash it out in such a way that you deal with the issue, and yet again you're not sweeping the
Yeah,
problem under the
yeah.
carpet. You're confronting it. It means that you're giving it less power. Once again, bury it down and gone. Second rule that I would say is, with this war, no one must leave the battleground wounded. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
No bleeding must take place, no wounds, no cuts, no anything. It's such a beautiful war. It's a war, but no one is allowed to be killed or hurt or stabbed or cut or whatever.
Yeah.
So the person, yourself and your opponent needs to leave the battleground unhurt. Or for those who are listening, I was doing the, what do you call it, apostrophe, libita.
You're not
saying-
Inverted
The
commas.
inverted,
Inverted commas.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
In inverted commas,
Yes.
opponent. So
Yeah.
they're not really
Yeah.
opponent, but we're using
Yeah.
these terminologies. Both of you must leave the battleground unharmed, and it is actually possible. He spoke about rules of engagements. There are some areas you should not and never go to. There's some words you should never go to. You should never raise your hand at your husband or your
Can't.
wife. So we need to be realistic about the fact that there are women that are physically abusive to men.
Yeah.
We avoid that. Avoid usage of certain words, especially when it comes to women or wives.
Yeah.
We are dangerous in that field, because it's very easy to say, oh my goodness, he bruised me, look, I'm cut,
Yes.
and then go to the police station and you open a case protection order. We know the whole story, and please, to people who are being abused, don't be scared to walk away from a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
We are not advocating for divorces, but we also don't want to bury you.
Yeah.
We honestly don't want
Yeah,
to bury you.
yeah.
If you can get a protection order, do so. You're not the first woman that's going to walk out with 3 children. Don't be scared. You're going to make it. Our parents made it. We are here. We don't have fathers. Because I think people stay in toxic relationships because they go, how am I going to survive financially?
Yes, yes,
And as long as you are a living being, a human being, and there's hope in you, you
can.
can make something of yourself. Okay, that was just in passing. And so that's easy with the someone that's abusive physically, but emotionally, which comes mostly through words, it's such a difficult thing to actually pinpoint or to even express, especially for a man to say, I'm hurt emotionally, because we are taught that men don't cry. We know this thing,
Yeah.
and so for me to come out and say this woman has hurt me emotionally, it's like,
a shame.
so what's wrong with you? Like,
Yeah.
that's pathetic.
Yeah.
Just get over it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, men, I said this the one time in one conference, and I think that's why we didn't get another invitation back, but it's okay. That's because we didn't have time for my husband to elaborate, but I want him to elaborate on this. Men are more sensitive than women.
I've heard that being said. I still don't know, but you guys are going to talk about
He's
it.
not going to invite me.
You guys are going to talk
again.
about it. No, don't worry. You're going to come back here. Yeah, we talk about it.
Men are so sensitive emotionally.
Yeah, we are.
They are, and we are not aware of
We
that.
bruise easily.
That's what I mean. You're more
Yeah.
emotionally
Yeah.
sensitive. Men bruise much more easier than women, and we are not aware.
Yeah.
One of the first symptoms of a bruised man is that they close off everything. They build walls. And you would say he's in the house and he's on his phone. Sometimes the bruising is not even you. You know, it's from his past, but you're a trigger, unfortunately.
You're a
So
trigger.
he's going to blame you.
Yeah.
In the house, on the phone, he's no longer talking to you, he's no
Yeah.
longer opening up to you because he's bruised.
It's closed
so,
off.
he's closed off. Let's put aside the ones where it's actually because of his past and it's the triggers that we spoke about earlier in the subconscious. Let's focus about the ones that you have said. You're not man enough.
Yeesh.
You're not sexually good in bed.
Yeah.
What kind of a man are you? Other men are. That
Yeesh.
is the worst thing you could say to any man.
Bosia.
Other men.
Other men
And,
doing it.
and women do this as men do this as well, other women. We avoid those things. So when you are at war, try not to say things like the other, you know, your gender does this,
Yeah.
but you don't do
That's
that.
hitting below the belt.
It is 100%.
Oh, my dad. My dad never.
Yeah.
My dad never. I'm
Hey.
not married to a dad.
Or you're useless.
Yes,
Another one
yeah.
that women like.
Yes, you're useless.
Yeah.
You're pathetic. You don't. I can tell you, as you've heard in the past two podcasts, that I've got a lot of vocabulary. I've got a lot of words, a lot of analogies.
Yes.
I can go on for the next 5 hours. I've got a lot to say,
Yeah.
right? And I'm very expressive. I'm sure you've already realized that about me. But believe you me, one thing my husband can put as a weakness is that I can say a lot of things that are hurtful, but it's not. He can tell you that it's not words that are like you are useless. It will be me confronting him. And I'll confront him in ways like you are this, you're doing this, you're doing this. But even if I can be put on a pedestal or I can be put on a microscope, you could see it. But that was necessary for him to hear that, though it sounded hurtful.
Yeah.
Now, being an expressive person that I am, there are words and things that I will never say or never do to my husband as a wife. I'll never say other men.
Yes.
Or why don't you? Or you are, I mean, there was a point in our life where my husband really messed up. He really made human excrement hit the fan, and our family life was we lost our jobs. Like we moved from one company, joined one company. It was terrible. Then it was a decision that he made. I didn't want it, but I supported him nonetheless. I support. So sometimes when your husband messes up, because he's gonna mess up, and I'm not saying it's husbands only, wives do this, but now I'm speaking from a wife context, or position rather. Men sometimes become very impulsive. They are risk takers.
Sure.
My husband and I are very different. He's a risk taker, he's impulsive. I sit down and I analyze. I'm optimistic by nature.
Yes.
It's a negative thing, but it's positive because at least I take very calculated risks.
Sure.
So I will even have a contingency plan in case something goes wrong. My husband is a let's take a flight to London, and then what do we do when we get there? And I don't know. And I'm a person that I need to know where in London,
whole
which
itinerary,
airport,
yeah.
everything. What's gonna? What if the flight explodes in the air? What if the airline doesn't have safe jackets?
Parachutes.
Yeah, are we gonna have our own in the bag? You know, I'm that kind of a person. And being that, another way of not emotionally abusing your spouse is letting them fall but support them.
Yes.
And when they do fall, the most important thing is don't say, and I told you so. Yeah, true.
Those words.
At a time that when my husband and I went to that company, lost our jobs, I was pregnant with my first girl. I'm not talking 1871 or no. I'm talking 2019, 20. We were without jobs. I was pregnant with my first child.
Yeah.
When I gave birth in the hospital, we had clothes and items from the baby showers. We had no money on us at all. We were living in my mom's house in 2020. And we actually left last year from my mom's house because we felt like now we are financially well.
Yeah.
We were not chased out. So we're like, no, we're just going to...
It's better now.
Yeah, just, fix our finances because we both then got jobs. We are in business. We are doing counseling. We are doing coaching. There's a lot of things that we're doing financially, We have our jobs, and all that. And in 2020, 2020, all of that it went to a complete halt and a standstill.
Sure.
Pregnant 2019, 5 months pregnant, no job. We went to my mom's house, lost the house, and we had 2 cars that were breaking. We couldn't even fix them. It was just a lot that was happening in our lives. Not once did I say, I told you so. That's why we are here.
Yeah.
I picked up the pieces.
Yeah.
My husband has got chronic depression, and I speak freely because we have that freedom in our marriage. There was one church that I went to. I'm not. I would tell you, but you're associated with it. But I'm sure you know which one.
Yes.
I went and I preached, and I was told that I was bleeding on the pulpit because I was talking about my husband's.
Come on.
And we have that agreement. It's one of the ways that my husband has said, in order to support me in my condition, be free to talk about this so that we can help more people.
Yes.
And he's got chronic depression for I think 12 years now, and he's on medication. So at that time he actually had a relapse and he was incapacitated and couldn't work. So because he left the job, then that person, because we were associated in the way that we were, I lost the job. That's how we lost both our jobs. He couldn't go back to the next one because my husband couldn't construct a sentence. You guys can hear him talk on the podcast now. You can hear him. He couldn't construct a sentence
Get
of
you.
please give me food. This was
I know exactly what is that,
2019.
yeah.
He couldn't construct a sentence of can you please give me food. He couldn't talk. He would sleep 18 hours a day. At that time I'm pregnant. I need massages. I'm overly emotional. But I had to remember that we're at war, but whatever happens, none of us must walk out of this war
Hurt
wounded.
or dead.
Yeah,
for that
or
matter.
dead.
You
hurt,
approached this as
whatever.
a unit.
As a unit.
It wasn't
No,
you.
we are. Yeah.
It was not even a unit. She was alone. I was asleep.
He was nowhere to be found.
Get you.
And I have to uphold this. But yes, it was a unit in a sense where we are in this together.
Yeah.
We are incapacitated. We have depression together. We are on this chronic condition now. But then I was
For
alone,
better or for worse.
For better or for worse. And and I've held it. I remember the day that my husband left and he couldn't go to the next show, whatever. He called my mom and he apologized. Said, Mama, I'm sorry for doing this to you, but I can't. He got on the floor, he wept. I got back on the phone with my mom. My mom said, Phindile, mtanam, come. And he said to me, I was able to support you and your sister. Mali abalung, 400 rand a month. Pension will look after Mazindo and you and your child.
Sure.
And I'm sorry to say this on this platform because
Yeah.
as if I'm bringing my husband down.
Yeah.
But I'm just giving you guys the picture of the reality of the situation.
This is what we need to talk about. Abantu bayazi ukuthi, listen, guys, it's not just nice times.
No.
There are real times, and you have to stand and
Stick
uphold
together.
stuff and stick
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
And before
But-
you get carried away, even the listeners, I don't think if my wife went through the same thing, I would have been the way she was to me.
Yeah. He would have
Wow.
left me.
I would have.
Damn.
I'm the kind of person whose monster easily crosses the line.
Mm.
I am the one who says the things that I shouldn't say.
Mm.
I'm the one who hits below the belt.
Your Hulk comes out easily.
Yes.
Mm.
So I'm able to make the comparison between the act of war and the art of war because it's something that's happening. My wife, I think she can master the art of war,
Mm.
but I'm caught in the act.
I get you.
It's very rare that I realize that it's the monster in me that has crossed the line, and I have to bring the monster
him
back
back,
every time. I want to say to other people, couples who are struggling, be kind to yourself, but don't rule out the idea of therapy. If you can, go. If you can get anything, change the therapist
Yeah.
until you find the therapist
find
that
something.
works. You need to be aware of your internal. I only realize now in my late 30s and 40s that I have been a monster that I have suppressed and repressed
Yes.
and ignored.
Ignored.
Because I've always been obsessed with being a good boy.
Yes.
Because if I become a bad boy, I'm going to get
Yes,
rejected.
Yes.
So I became so good at being good that I forgot that there's so much that's bad
There's
with
so
me.
much under there as well.
So some of the things I don't speak them from research. I speak them from personal experience, but I verify them with the research and with the scripture.
Yeah.
That it's only now in my 40s that I'm starting to accept that, Lehlohonolo, you're not as good as you think you are.
Yeah.
You are just as good as you are bad.
Hey.
And the more I embrace and accept and acknowledge the bad that I am, the more I can be in control of
control.
it. The more I can catch myself doing wrong.
Yes.
The more I can say, Lehlohonolo, you've been going that route for a while.
Yeah,
Come back.
Yeah.
You know.
I get you.
So it's a battle that requires patience, and resilience.
Yeah.
Because most of the times you will get it wrong, like I do.
Yeah.
But you have to find it in yourself to rise up and do it again. Remember, the Bible says that the good man may fall seven times,
but he rises.
but he rises again
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not encouraging falling here because nobody falls by a mistake unless you're a rugby player or a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
So sometimes you'll make mistakes. Give yourself permission to come back from those mistakes.
Sure.
Try it again. Become a better person. Become a better man. Catch yourself going too far call yourself back,
Yeah.
give it another try.
Repair the situation.
You know, and it's not that easy because, you know, if you're inclined to being angry, it's very easy to just snap or whatever.
Yeah.
But it really takes just that. It's art. You practice it. You have to go at it. If you need external help, get it. You know, because it becomes really difficult. So the idea is, ask your question. Have time in the midst of the feud, and you know, no matter how much it's escalated, just quickly 10 seconds or even a split second, just say to yourself, what I'm about to do, is it going to build a break?
Eesh. You have to catch yourself.
Quickly.
Have a break. Like,
Yeah, even if it's a
think,
split
yeah,
second, and
yeah.
if you know that this is going to destroy and not build, try not to do it. And you're talking to somebody. I used to have very serious anger issues. As much as I feel I sound like somebody that has mastered this art, and you know, I'm doing better than what I was. It's easy for me to fight. That's my nature. So the reason why I'm speaking so freely is because it's not like I was, you know, Nali, when I was younger, I used to hear abantu babazalan bati ulukile kahlao, you know, abantu abanjalo, yeah, abalungile ngemvelo.
Yeah.
I am not
Just
one of those
naturally
people.
good,
Yeah,
yeah.
naturally kind, naturally calm and sweet. I am none of those things.
Sure.
To me, it's easy to get angry. My husband will tell you when he met me, you know, somehow when it came to him, I was able to, you know, manage it. But if I walk into a bank and you do something to me, I can get you fired in split seconds. I call the manager, stop the
Yeah.
he will tell you, like
Stops
everything
now, yeah.
stops now. That's how easy it is for me to get angry. And I'm not talking because I'm a saint. I'm talking because I'm a sinner that knew how to manage her weaknesses.
yes.
So I'm urging people that as you are in this road of getting married, you need to know that when arguments do rise, you know that first of all, like I said, you know, no wounds. We have to be very careful, and also know that is what you're doing about to build or
Yes,
break.
break.
If it's about to break, stop it right there. Another thing that I've realized that couples have, you know, even, you know, premaritally, is pride.
Hey.
Your pride, which says, I cannot say sorry,
Yeah.
I will not say sorry, I'm not going to speak to him unless he speaks to me,
Yeah,
vice versa.
yeah.
And we need to break the pride.
Angeke ngincenge.
And you have to, you know.
Yeah.
And there was a time that my husband really pushed me to another edge that I don't want to go to. Ended up saying to him, you know what, and I knew the second that I said that, okay, I said it though, still but I felt I shouldn't allow my spouse to push me to that level. What I'm saying to you is that give without expecting anything back. I know this is a difficult one.
Yes.
Sometimes you're going to give goodness and kindness to your spouse and they
Yeah.
might never return it. I want you to be that kind of a person such that you know, Peter to go Timothy, or is it, yeah, Peter to Timothy says, Timothy, people will always have something to say about you.
Yes, yes.
But I like what he says next. He says, don't give them something to talk about.
Yeah.
So if people are
Yeah.
going to talk about, let it be at their discretion,
Yeah.
but don't give them leverage
Yeah.
on anything,
Don't give
you
them
know.
ammunition.
Don't give them
Yeah.
ammunition. So even in marriage, it's like do as much good as you can, such that they will not have ammunition against you.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, such that they won't have leverage to say,
Yes.
but you didn't do that.
Yes.
You failed there. You failed
Yeah.
wherever. And the second it comes to that, it means that you're not playing your part.
Sure.
And it's so painful to give so much goodness to somebody, yet they return it with human excrement.
Yes.
It's really very painful.
Yeah.
But that's where the humility in marriage comes. You know, that's where the love comes. Where you were saying earlier, laying your life for somebody. How many times did we sin against Christ, yet He died for us? Scripture says, while we are still sinners.
Yes.
So while
Why?
your spouse is being aggressive, while your spouse is being out of hand,
Yeah.
you know, you have to lay your life, be humble, you know, be kind, be good, and you'd be amazed at the shift that you bring to them, because now, if whatever behavior they have is because of the subconscious and all the files and all the archives and all the pain, what you're doing to them once you become kind is actually you are reversing or deleting all
Yes.
those other files and
Yes,
archives,
yes.
and you're giving them a new experience.
new one.
You're giving them a new reference. You're giving them new files. Is this what really love is? I thought love was abuse. I thought love was pain. I thought when my father was hitting my wife, that's an expression or extension of love. I have to be kind. Sometimes, if you know, I had one couple that said to me, I was doing counseling, and she said, well, my husband, unlike other husbands, he doesn't take me on surprises on holiday. And I said, you don't have Google. You don't have Google.
Go check.
Okay, let me give you a list. Airbnb check.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
Emirates. You don't have cheap flights.
Yeah.
You don't. I said, if you want to show him how it's done, you do it.
Do it.
But if you're gonna sit there and hate your husband because he's not going to take you on a surprise holiday,
of course,
take
yeah.
him.
Oh, of course,
And next time, and that's what happened in our marriage. My husband, as romantic as I was with our engagement, that was the the only romance. Otherwise, he did, he does do roses and chocolates. I must say, he's very good at that. But anything else that is above that, he's not so good, especially with holidays. I'm the one that always does the holidays, whatever. But there was one time that he tried to prepare a surprise holiday. He only failed because he needed my help, because but that said to me, his mind was receiving a new pattern. His subconscious was, it was formulating a new pattern of doing things. Oh, so I can actually do surprise holidays, or I can actually be kind to my spouse, or I can actually be at war and not swear at my husband. Or I can actually, my husband can disappoint me, but I don't have to insult him. I can actually compliment him. Oh, okay, I don't have to go this far with my statements. I don't have to call my husband stupid. I can actually say, honey, I don't like what you're doing, instead of you stupid husband, you pathetic man. There are words that you can use. You have to sit and discipline yourself not to use words that can break your husband down. I think that's where we were at the point. So it's very important how you speak to a man. It changes even his behavior towards you. It changes even his words and statements towards you. It's not that the inclination or the feelings are not there. It's how you manage it such that you build him. My husband can tell you that in moments when, there was the time that he said, I know that if you wanted to, you could. But the fact that you have not, I really appreciate that. And it's because I have the ability to, but I choose not, because at the end of the day, I don't want to destroy my husband. And I certainly don't want to destroy my marriage, right? And so I have to try by all means, even though I want to kill him right now, to rather kiss him. That's how I was in the beginning of the marriage, and something that I lost over time. But I'm rebuilding it to say, when he does something negative, let me just, hit back with something positive. And over time, even when I was confronting him with certain things, it was easier for him to have to sit down and look back, because he saw certain actions from me. That in a situation where I had the leverage or the ammunition to hit at him and I didn't. So that means he actually has the ability not to hit at me. It's humanly possible, because he saw the example from me, then he can do it as well. It is a journey, can I say.
It's a lot of work.
There's one thing that I want to say. My wife keeps on talking about patterns, and I want to put them into context, especially talking about my story. And this will explain why my wife is better in the art of war than I am. It's not like she was born a good person. My wife, her strength is not that she's a good person, but it's that she is in touch with the bad person that she is.
Okay, all right.
My wife can sin now, like sin, and then pray
immediately.
And when she prays, she doesn't say Lord Jesus as if she's looking for forgiveness. She says Spirit of the Living God. And the Bible says if you sin against the Spirit, she goes there.
She goes for him.
She always goes boldly before the throne of grace. And which is the lesson that I'm learning from her in my 40s. She doesn't have a problem with being wrong. She doesn't even have a problem with being bad. She embraces that. My wife is the kind of a person who says, I don't like this person, I hate her. Actually, I despise his living guts. He's that kind of a person. She's that kind of a person. She is in touch with what's wrong with her. She is in touch with her bad side. She's comfortable being in her dark place. That's I think that's what makes her master the war. On the other hand, me, I grew up with a gospel that says, when you sin, you lose your anointing. You can't come boldly before the throne of grace.
You sin, you've lost it.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself. The gospel that I was taught is, when you enter the Holy of Holies and you have sinned, you're going to die.
Drop dead,
So to me, it was, don't go to the Holy of Holies in case you are sinful.
It's a scary place there.
And this gospel was built on a wound as a child. Because when I was a child, my father used to buy me clothes. But when I go and play and there's a spot, like there's a spot on my jean, he would beat me very harshly. He would, if he's not going to beat me, he would attack me verbally. Say you shouldn't have a spot in your clothes. And then I learned that if I become dirty, I'm going to be punished very badly. And I had to obsess about being clean. A child the only way for a child to grow is for them to be dirty.
Play. Yeah.
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 But as a child, I had a wound that led me to believe that being dirty means you can't go to your father. Like literally. I couldn't go to my father when I was dirty.
And then you translated that into your relationship with the Father in heaven.
It easily translated into my relationship with God. So I had to turn my back against everything that's bad about me.
Yeah.
And be obsessed with how I appear. I focused on my persona and turned my back on my shadow. And I learned from my wife that actually the more you embrace your shadow, the kinder you are to other people.
Yes.
The kinder you are to yourself.
Sure.
And the more persona you have.
The more you have.
Which is something that I mean, one day I said, how do you manage to do this? I mean, you can be very, very sinful. Sometimes seconds before the pulpit. And I'm joking, I'm just exaggerating.
Well, you know, some of the thoughts I have before the pulpit, man, I'm like, Jesus, how can you allow me to think like this? I'm about to preach.
You understand?
The flashbacks I had sometimes in prayer.
Yeah.
I'm like, Aibo.
I mean, no wonder I have such a strong inclination towards being depressed. Because depression is actually repression, suppression.
Something is being suppressed.
Something is being suppressed. And which is something that I'm very good at. Suppressing everything that's wrong about me.
Sure, man.
That's why my wife used to say to me, she still does sometimes, Lehlohonolo Mazindo is never wrong. And it's true, because if I'm wrong, I can't go to my father. If I'm wrong, I'm going to get punished. I can't embrace what's wrong about me. So I have to focus so much about what's right about me. And because I focus so much about what's right about me and I don't embrace what's wrong with me, I project what's wrong with me to her. And then at the end of the day, I don't fight fair. Because I am not willing to see what's wrong with me. I can only see what's wrong with her. But once I get in touch with what's wrong with me, every time I do that, I start seeing what's right with her. I don't want to talk about the case that we dealt with of people who were both right in their own eyes and both wrong in each other's eyes, and how I just had to turn those people to the wrong side of themselves and invited them to embrace what's wrong about them. Guess what? They started seeing what's right about each other. So I think that's what I'm learning from my wife that is really, really working for her.
Yes, sir.
My wife, she cannot, if she hates you, she doesn't suppress it. She expresses it even if you are not there. But she experiences it, she expresses it, but she's still able to manage her actions. Because we need to remember there's a difference between what we do and what we feel. And we are still responsible for what we do regardless of what we feel. But if we are obsessed with our light and we don't bring our darkness to light, we will be controlled by our actions. And then I found that the manner in which I treat my wife is how I need to be treated myself.
Sure.
That is why I'm saying I'm looking
at a mirror
and think I'm seeing my wife.
Yeah. But it's
and
not.
I'm attacking her instead of attacking me.
Like, I know.
So that's what happens in the psychology of a person.
Yeah.
And that's why we end up going through the
destroying
act
each
of
other.
war. And we are not able to embrace the art of war.
We are almost out of time, but we gotta talk about sex a bit. In the last 10 minutes that we have, what should people who are going into marriage understand about sex, the beauty of it, and whatever comes to your mind? Let's talk to our audience.
I think it's what you make of it. Like marriage as a whole, we have these expectations already. Some of you have expectation because of the porn that you're watching, and all that. And I would really encourage you to really take that all out of your mind, because it's not as it is. First of all, those people are acting there. You
Yeah.
know, the many hers. I mean,
Yeah.
come on,
It's a-
guys. You know, it's
yeah.
a
Because I was about to ask you, why is porn dangerous? Why is porn not advisable as a learning tool or as something to spice up?
Yeah.
Into yethu?
And I want my husband to elaborate because he speaks so well about it and what really porn is. It's an extreme of a lot of things,
Sure.
you know. But try and take that, discard that from your mind and come in with an open mind that this is your spouse, because at the end of the day, you need to be able to meet each other's sexual needs,
Yeah.
but also be respectful, right? Because at the end of the day, you would want your wife to, you want to come from the back, but not from, you know, the sexual organ. You may want it from the anus
Yes,
or
yes,
the
yes.
rectum or
Yeah.
whatever, and she might not be comfortable.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
yes, she's supposed to meet your sexual needs, but
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that it now has to cross her boundaries. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
so we need to be very cognizant about those things and just be respectful. But at the end of the day, it's explore each other, you know, in marriage.
Right.
Give each other time. Express your sexual fantasies. When we were still courtshipping, he actually expressed some of his sexual fantasies, and I was like, "Are you serious?" It's not things that I wouldn't do because
Yeah.
I'm very open
Yeah.
open-minded sexually, but
Yeah.
it was like, okay, I didn't know that. You know, really, I wouldn't expect that from
Are
you.
you really born again?
Yeah, I for this, you know, and so, but I found them interesting, and you know, I was able to meet some of them. Then there was one that he wanted, and I was like, let's do this. And then by the time that I'm like, let's do, is like, he's like to me, did I really have that kind of a fantasy? And here I am now, I'm like, but I want us to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And you know, and because you know we have a fair amount of Christians probably listen to this podcast. A lot of questions that we get is oral sex wrong?
That's
Is
interesting.
is
Oral.
using toys wrong, you know, and stuff like that. I'm personally not a believer of toys because God gave us. He gave us the tools.
Natural toys.
Yeah, natural toys. So I would think, this is my opinion, that, I mean, according to what's there in scripture, I don't think toys are something that are effective, because at the end of the day, you're going to start getting addicted to the toy.
the toy,
Remember, the toy is working on batteries.
Yeah.
That thing is a battery, it's a
Yeah,
machine,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and your husband is not a machine at the end of
Not
the
a
day.
robot.
Not a robot at all. And now you're going to start getting addicted to the robot and forgetting your husband. So I wouldn't encourage that. But in terms of oral sex, I mean, it's still within the context of the physical body. I don't see anything wrong. I would advise things like, just please take a bath, for example.
Yeah.
You know,
Make it easy for
yeah,
your
make it
partner.
easy for your partner. Let it be very hygienic and all. But explore as much as you can. Talk about it. You know, and try not to use sex as a tool against each other.
Yes.
Of course, you know, we're not gonna do 5 rounds after a fight that we've just had. You know,
Yeah.
let's give each other time to cool down from the
Yes.
fight. But don't use the sex against each other. Once we've both cooled down and we think we're okay, explore. You know, have as much fun as you can. Be open-minded. Meet your spouse's needs. It's a jungle out there.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to grab him and everyone wants to
Yeah.
grab her. So don't give that ammunition.
Don't allow them.
And don't allow them. And no, you know, that's not leverage for you to go and cheat just because your spouse is not giving you. No, that's not. But be open-minded and have fun.
Yeah, and the danger of having so many sexual activities before you are married is that when you get married, your partner can only as good as the best one you had in the past.
Right.
They cannot be good on their own.
There's,
It can
there's
be-
a
they-
comparison.
There is that comparison, and it happens consciously or unconsciously.
Yeah.
Like, even though your partner can, at their best, they're still not good enough compared to the one in the past. So you are gathering things that will set you up for failure
Yeah, I
in
get
the
you, man.
future.
Sure.
I think it's Sade. She has a song that says, "It's never as good as the first time." But most of us now will have to make the second time better.
Yes.
But now, if it has to compete with the best of what happened, you'll be lucky if you get all the lousy people, which is very unlikely. Because there are people who don't have a character, but sexually they are very, 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 wild.
Yeah.
And your wife has a good character. Your wife is loyal to you. Your wife is disciplined. Your wife has good qualities.
Yeah.
but she's never as good as the one.
As I want before.
You understand?
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that you don't get in the habit of having sex with every person who gets in a relationship with you, or being in a relationship with the first person you get.
It's power there as well.
So you need to
you.
save your future partner the stress of having to measure up to
Hey.
the person in your past who doesn't even have the character to be a wife, and they focus on all their energies on being good sexually, so because it's what gets them the next drink in the club. Yeah, so you need to understand that.
Yes.
And number two, I always talk about the act and the art. I think I have a lot of those. There's the act of having sex, and there's an art of lovemaking. And the act of having sex is just relieving each other sexually.
Yes.
You're relieving yourself through your spouse. But the art is being there, like being deliberate about experiencing each other to the fullest.
Yes.
The art involves the emotion. The art involves the presence. Because sometimes you feel like, now I'm having sex with an empty body.
Yes.
There's a corpse underneath me or on top of me. It can happen both ways. And like my wife said, an art is something that you prepare prior to the activity. So you need to be very more intentional in your lovemaking. And make sure that both of you accommodate each other to the fullest. And pornography, like my wife said, it's built to play with your highest fantasy.
Yes.
And I think 99% of people who act in pornography, they don't like what they are doing. You know, sleeping with many people seems like a good idea until you sleep with people. Like, people would fantasize about being a gynecologist. You know, I want to see all of them. But when that's all you do every day, it's a different story. Like a man fantasizing about being raped, but when you are raped, it's a different story.
Issue,
So pornography is something that you can fantasize about, but when you have to experience it, it's hell. Imagine you just ejaculated and you still have 5 more videos to make, and you need more ejaculations for that. It's disgusting, but you have to do it.
It's not real.
And then now we want to impose that into our marriages. And then I expect when I do this to my wife, she says or something like that
immediately.
and then because she's not making the noise that you hear in pornography, to participate. And then she's participating, but you are like, pornography is worse, because now you are comparing your spouse to the best of what doesn't exist. If you slept with someone, at least it's the best of what used to be. But in pornography, you compare your spouse to the best that doesn't exist. And you are sabotaging your own sex life. Enjoy each other's bodies more than genitals.
Fascinating, guys. This has been a therapy session. It's been inspirational, informative. I think literally my best episode, my favorite episode that we've ever done.
Aww.
Thank you so much for sharing your heart, your lives, sharing from even your wounds. You know, it's been truly, truly, truly amazing. Thank you so much.
You.
I want you out there to make use of the Mazindos for enriching your lives, maybe individually, as a couple, or even in your organization, maybe as a church, in your business, because they do more work than just relationships, but they're also into organizational development as well. So please tell us a bit more about that, and how do people access those particular services?
You can go ahead.
Oh, okay. So, so we do counseling, professional counseling, and registered with HPCSA.
Right.
So we're not fly by night.
Which means you take medical aids.
We take medical aids as well. You can check us out. And so we also do coaching. We believe in coaching as well. It's very important to be coached and mentoring. That's for individuals. That's for couples, relationships. We also do personal development coaching as well, and life coaching. We are also both neuro-linguistic practitioners. He's a registered counselor. So he's the professional professional psychologist. I'm in the coaching space,
Right.
and we also do training and development for companies. We've worked with government sectors as well.
Yes.
We've worked with SMEs as well. So we would come to your organization or your corporation, and we do trainings, anything from things like conflict management, to any empowerment that you might need
Yes.
for your company as training.
Yes.
Also just as motivation as well. We do talks, which is very important, for staff, especially post-COVID. There's a lot that has happened
Yes.
in people's lives personally,
Yes.
and they feel very discouraged at work, unproductive. So we cater for that as well. We also have HR experience in our package, and we also do basic counseling, like basic counseling psychology. I don't know why I'm getting this
Yeah.
thing wrong.
The training.
Trainings on basic counseling, and
Oh,
we
I
believe
see.
that, as we've mentioned in the podcast, that people have to be trained.
Yes.
Even if you're a layman in something, be trained, have some kind of training, because we don't want people to do things and they taking chances, then
Yes.
you're dabbling, because
Yes.
you're dabbling in people's lives.
Yes.
And so we do that for organizations, but we also now have brought into the package churches, where we train the counseling team and even pastors. How to counsel effectively.
Yes.
Not just say to a person, that's a demon, go and fast
Yeah,
and pray.
yeah, yeah.
Like we addressed earlier, not everything is a demon. Some things, as Christ has said, sit down and consider,
Yes.
think, therapy and all that. So we do trainings, and we train the counseling teams. We train the teams that work with people with marriages in the churches. We do all of that. I don't know if there's anything else that I have left out.
No, I think you
Yeah.
haven't. I don't know if you spoke about marriage seminars.
Also,
and-
we do marriage seminars. We host marriage seminars.
Yes.
We are also invited in a lot of marriage seminars across I think in three provinces so far, hoping to grow in
Yes.
the years that are to come.
Yes.
And we also host conferences, ministry-wise.
Yes.
The church ministry, we do crusades, we do revivals as well.
Yeah,
So
man.
that's also a very big part of our lives. And I think we've basically covered everything that we can. So with the counseling as well, it's not just premarital or marital counseling or individual counseling, but it's also based on mental health issues.
Yes, yes.
People suffer with a lot of mental health issues. We help with that, even with the
Sure.
coaching aspect of that. And we enjoy working with people. We enjoy
Right.
working with organizations. We enjoy working with churches. We enjoy working with individuals. It's our calling. It's our purpose.
Yes.
And we would love to be a source of change in your life.
Yeah.
We believe in change. We believe in growth. We believe in improvement.
Yeah.
I always say that, as a human being, this is actually from my mentor, who does not know that he was my mentor, who's Jim Ron, a very powerful investor and speaker. He's also passed on. He says that, unlike trees and animals, we as humans don't live on instinct. Trees know that, trees are tree. It has to sprout roots and,
Yes.
and stuff like that. I mean, branches. And the lion knows that they only mate in a certain season.
Yes.
And other than that, the instinct doesn't
Yeah,
allow
doesn't
him.
work, yeah.
But with us, we have the power to change direction at any given time. We have the power to live here, live there, move, change,
Yes,
chop, and
yes,
whatever.
yes.
And so we always encourage people to do that with their lives. Chop and change, have an analysis about your life, have a personal inventory, know what you're missing, know where you have to improve, grow, and change.
yes.
And so we'd love to start that journey with you.
Yes.
I think to close off, not to close off, but close off what I'm saying is that we are on social media platforms.
Yes,
So you
ma'am.
said we must
Yes,
give
ma'am.
that as well.
Absolutely.
So we are on LinkedIn. You can find us if you want to verify our professionalism or
Yes.
qualification. We are also on YouTube, and my YouTube channel is Phindile Mazindo. My husband is Lehlohonolo Mazindo, and then we've got a couple channel called The Maz. We are also on Instagram and Facebook, and throughout our social media platforms, we are basically Phindile Mazindo or Phindile Innocentia Mazindo and Lehlohonolo Mazindo.
Right.
And you can contact us on 071 185 6615, and our email address is mazindo@gmail.com. And then you can also catch us on our websites, which is www.phindilemazindo.co.za and www.lehlohonolomazindo.co.za.
Beautiful, Brista. And we're going to put all these details on the screen, but also in the description of the podcast. When I have all those details there as well, so
Yeah.
no one misses anything.
The car that scored points for me, I didn't drive it until I was 34.
Wow.
even though I started working when I was 26.
Sure. Okay.
And the reason why I only bought it at 34 is that many people who knew nothing about the car brand said it was too expensive.
Okay.
And when I was 34, I just went crazy and said, let me just go in and ask questions
Yeah, and try.
and see if I can afford it. I mean, I got a brand new.
Wow.
That was I bought that one brand new, and I was not even paying half. I was paying less than half of what I thought I would pay. So sometimes we don't have things because we are listening too much to
what
people
people
who
say.
know nothing
Yes.
about this.
Yes.
Why am I saying this? Is because people think we are too expensive based on
You
how
know what?
busy we are.
Yeah, I get you.
Please, before you think you are too expensive, don't do what I did, not having us simply because you think we are too expensive, only to find that, oh, these people is so easy to have them. Talk to us and see how it's easy,
Yes,
easy it is
yes,
for us to be
Reach
in your
out,
event.
reach out.
Reach out. That's the only way you will know. Please find out for yourself if we are too expensive.
And I personally vouch for the Mazindos. They give nothing but the best, and they really put their hearts into the work. So we thank God for you. They will be a blessing in your life. I know it for a fact. I have no words to thank you guys. Thank you so much. And wow, what an amazing episode. Subscribe, like, share the content, please, and help us grow on this content. From us and the Mazindos, it's goodbye. Thank you.